The war-torn landscapes of the 20th century produced many names that still echo in history. Among them stands Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, a figure who embodied both the traditions of the Prussian officer corps and the contradictions of his time. Called the gentleman general by allies and enemies alike, he was admired for calm discipline, aristocratic manners, and an almost old-fashioned sense of courtesy unusual in modern war. Yet he served under a regime he privately disdained, once referring to Adolf Hitler as a bohemian corporal. How could a man of such values reconcile loyalty to his nation with the brutal realities of Nazi rule? If stories like this fascinate you, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Many more captivating chapters of history await. Gerd von Rundstedt was born on December 12, 1875, in Aschersleben, in the Prussian province of Saxony. His family belonged to the landed nobility, steeped in military traditions that had long defined Prussia. For generations, the Rundstedts produced officers, and young Gerd's path seemed predestined. The German Empire of his youth was a world where the officer corps was not merely a profession, but a calling, shaped by ideals of honor, loyalty, and service. Educated at cadet schools and the Prussian War Academy, Rundstedt advanced steadily. He was not a brilliant innovator, but a man of discipline, admired for composure and authority. Assigned to the Guard regiments, he entered the elite of the army, where aristocratic reserve and devotion to the Kaiser were cultivated as articles of faith. The First World War challenged these ideals. Rundstedt served in staff and field roles, experiencing the strain of attrition warfare and the collapse of imperial order. He was no flamboyant tactician. Instead, colleagues valued him as a reliable planner, cautious yet consistent. The war's end in 1918 brought upheaval, revolution, the abdication of the Kaiser, and the harsh terms of Versailles. For Rundstedt, like many conservative officers, the defeat was not only national, but cultural, an end to the world he had been raised to serve. The interwar years confined Germany's army to 100,000 men. Within this Reichswehr, promotion was slow, but standards were exceptionally high. Rundstedt rose gradually, earning a reputation as a mentor for younger officers. He forged ties with men such as Wilhelm Keitel and Walter von Brauchitsch, future leaders of the Wehrmacht. While many younger officers leaned toward nationalist movements, Rundstedt maintained distance. For him, the officer corps had to remain apolitical, a neutral custodian of German honor. This stance, however, would face a severe test after 1933. By the early 1930s, Rundstedt was nearing retirement. He disliked Hitler's populist style, but approved of rearmament, which restored dignity to the army. Like many of his peers, he chose silent accommodation over resistance. In 1938, he officially retired, but was soon recalled. Germany was preparing for war, and the new Wehrmacht required experienced commanders. Rundstedt took command of Army Group South in the invasion of Poland in 1939. The campaign ended swiftly, earning him further trust. In 1940, after victory in France, he was promoted to Field Marshal. The Western campaign highlighted his balance of caution and cooperation. He worked with Erich von Manstein, whose plan to send armored thrusts through the Ardennes overturned Allied expectations. Rundstedt initially hesitated, but once committed, oversaw the operation with competence. The result became one of the most decisive victories of the war. Yet his conservative style clashed with the regime's ideological fervor. Rundstedt continued to regard Hitler with disdain, but he did not resign. For him, duty meant service to Germany, regardless of the political character of its leaders. In June 1941, Operation Barbarossa began. Rundstedt commanded Army Group South, tasked with conquering Ukraine. His forces won major victories at Uman and Kiev, capturing vast numbers of Soviet troops and seizing fertile territory. But Rundstedt remained cautious. He warned of logistical overstretch and urged strategic patience. By November, his exhausted troops faced winter conditions near Rostov. Believing a retreat essential, he ordered a withdrawal. Hitler, enraged by the loss of ground, dismissed him in December 1941. This moment illustrated the widening gap between military judgment and Hitler's demand for absolute obedience. Rundstedt retired to his estate, but his career was far from over. Germany's shrinking pool of trusted commanders ensured that he would be recalled again. In 1942, Rundstedt was appointed Commander-in-Chief West. His duty was to prepare occupied France and the Low Countries against an Allied invasion. It was a nearly impossible task. Long coastlines, limited resources, and Hitler's constant interference. Rundstedt distrusted the propaganda surrounding the Atlantic Wall. He argued that reserves should be held inland to counterattack after landings. Erwin Rommel, commanding in Normandy, disagreed, insisting that the Allies had to be crushed at the shoreline before air power and logistics made them unstoppable. Their debate revealed a larger divide. The Old Guard, cautious and strategic, versus younger commanders seeking decisive blows. By June 6, 1944, Rundstedt's warnings proved correct. The Allies landed in Normandy, their air supremacy crippling German movement. Reserves were committed too late, and the front collapsed. Rundstedt even suggested exploring peace negotiations, which enraged Hitler. He was dismissed in July, but, as before, was recalled within weeks when no one else could replace him. By late 1944, Germany was on the defensive. Rundstedt oversaw the Ardennes offensive, known as the Battle of the Bulge. Though skeptical of success, he obeyed orders. At first, the Germans achieved surprise, but supply shortages and Allied strength quickly turned the tide. The failure drained Germany's last strategic reserves. Rundstedt, weary and realistic, recognized that the war was lost. His relationship with Hitler remained cold, marked by mutual distrust. The field marshal's aristocratic composure contrasted sharply with Hitler's erratic determination, but obedience prevailed over resistance. By March 1945, as Allied forces crossed the Rhine and Soviet troops advanced from the east, Rundstedt was dismissed for the final time. He withdrew into obscurity, his long career ending in the ruins of a defeated Reich. After the surrender, Rundstedt was taken prisoner by the Allies. At Nuremberg, he stood as part of the German High Command, but was not convicted of war crimes. Ailing in health, he was released in 1949. He lived quietly until his death in Hanover in 1953. Assessments of his legacy remain divided. Admirers cite his professionalism, courtesy, and detachment from ideology. Critics emphasize his willingness to serve a regime he despised, arguing that his obedience contributed to disaster. Unlike officers who joined resistance plots, Rundstedt chose silence. His career reflects the weight of tradition, where loyalty to the uniform outweighed personal conviction. Some historians describe him as the last representative of the old Prussian school, aristocratic, disciplined, and cautious. Others view him as a symbol of failure, an officer who saw wrong but did nothing. The duality is captured in his epithet, the gentleman general, a title suggesting respect, but also detachment from the brutal realities of the war he helped conduct. The life of Gerd von Rundstedt shows the contradictions of the 20th century. He embodied a fading world of aristocratic honor, yet served under a dictatorship that distorted those very values. His rise and fall remind us that history is shaped not only by those who seize power, but also by those who, willingly or reluctantly, sustain it. His story invites reflection on the balance between duty and conscience. What does it mean to remain silent in the face of destructive authority? Is obedience itself a moral choice? These questions, posed by his life, remain relevant far beyond his century. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss new journeys into the past.